Have you ever thought that you were meant for something bigger? It's like you have a special calling on your life, but problems keep coming up and resistance comes from odd places. Everyone who has been chosen needs to know about these 7 enemies. In this movie, we'll show you how to beat them. It's possible that the first one is already nearby. Please click the like button and subscribe button before we start, so you don't miss any more videos like this. Are you ready? Let's go. 1. Enemies in spirit. Spiritual enemies are people who are at odds with you in a spiritual world that you can't see or touch. In Ephesians 6:12, the Apostle Paul says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." This verse shows that the biggest battles in life are not physical, but spiritual, and they are fought against God's will and work in the lives of His people. There are many types of spiritual enemies, including principalities, powers, masters of darkness, and spiritual wickedness. Principalities are powerful powers that rule over areas and have an impact on cultures. Powers are things that hold people down and bind them. Rulers of evil use lies and sin to control people and systems. And spiritual wickedness is the doing of bad things in the spiritual world. These groups are planned and organized, and their targets are people, families, towns, and countries. Because these enemies live in the unseen world, they can't be attacked with weapons or human strength. It's easy for them to attack the mind, feelings, and spirit, planting seeds of doubt, fear, confusion, and hopelessness. Their main goal is to stop God's plans by getting in the way of breakthroughs, deliverance, and fate. This spiritual war never ends, so you need to be alert and spiritually wise. The story of Daniel in Daniel 10 tells us a lot about mental battle. Daniel prayed and fasted to get closer to God and ask for help and understanding. God sent an answer right away through the angel Gabriel, but it took 21 days to arrive because the prince of Persia, a powerful evil principality, fought the angel. That's why the archangel Michael had to step in and break through the resistance to bring God's word to Daniel. This story shows that heavenly interference does happen in the lives of Christians. Daniel didn't know about the battle in heaven, but his constant prayers were a key part of the ultimate victory. No, the Prince of Persia did not fight Daniel directly. Instead, he tried to block the angel who was supposed to bring God's answer. This shows that spiritual enemies often work in the background to stop gifts, answers, and chances from coming to you. Spiritual enemies want to stop breakthroughs, deliverance, and people from their futures. They put up barriers to stop or delay people from getting God's promises. One example is that what seems like a delay in God's plans is sometimes just spiritual pushback. This needs a proactive reaction, not one of passivity or giving up. To beat spiritual enemies, you need spiritual tools. Ephesians 6:13-18 talks about God's armor, which is made up of truth, righteousness, faith, salvation, the Bible, prayer, and the message of peace. People who believe in God are told to keep their faith strong, pray often, and follow what the Bible says. To get rid of mental enemies, you need to know what they are like. Their effect can be felt, even though they can't be seen. As Christians fight these forces in spiritual battle with faith and persistence, they can win and achieve their God-given purpose. 2. Enemies in the home. When our family members become our enemies, they become one of the hardest types of enemies because they are close to us. These enemies can be siblings, family members, or anyone in the house who feels threatened by God's grace, promise, or favor on your life. Most of the time, the pain caused by home enemies is worse, because they are people we love and trust. Because of this relationship, these kinds of disagreements are not only hard on the emotions, but they are also spiritually important. There are many examples of household enemies in the Bible. These show how jealousy and rejection often happen when God marks or separates a person for a special reason. One of the oldest and most powerful examples is the story of Cain and Abel, which can be found in Genesis 4:1 through 16. Abel, the shepherd, made an offering that God liked, but Cain, the farmer, did not. Cain let jealousy take over his life instead of dealing with his flaws. The terrible thing that happened was that Cain killed his own brother, Abel. This story shows an important truth about people who are your home enemies. They usually want to hurt your reputation more than they want to get better. Cain did what he did because he couldn't accept that Abel's sacrifice was accepted. This shows how envy can get out of hand and cause problems in a family. Genesis 37 tells the story of Joseph and his brothers, who were fierce enemies and lived in the same house. Even though their father Jacob liked Joseph and gave him prophetic dreams, his brothers looked down on him. They hated Joseph when he told them about his dreams of greatness, which meant he would one day be better than them. They planned to hurt him and eventually sold him as a slave. Even though they tried to stop Joseph from becoming successful, God had other plans for him. He became a great leader in Egypt and saved his family during a famine. This story shows that people who are your enemies at home are often after your star, which is the special purpose or fate that God has given you. The reason they don't want to help you is not because of what you did, but because of what God has put in you. Enemies in the home often show up in subtle ways before they start fighting. Siblings who are jealous may stop you from making progress or spread negative to stop you from doing well. They might turn you down not because you did anything wrong, but because your success makes them feel bad about how inadequate they think they are. When God's favor on your life becomes clear, like it was with Abel and Joseph, this jealousy often gets worse. Dealing with enemies in the home takes spiritual and moral maturity. It is important to understand that their resistance is often caused by spiritual forces that want to stop you from reaching your goals. It's important to pray, forgive, and keep believing in God's plan. Believers must trust in God's power, just like Joseph did when he forgave his brothers and saw how God had used their actions for good. Having enemies in the house reminds us how important it is to keep going. The fact that they tried to dim your light shows how great your destiny is. You can get through their opposition and achieve God's plan for your life if you stay rooted in your faith. 3. Frenemies. Frenemies are a special kind of enemy that is often more dangerous than a direct enemy. When you have enemies, they are clearly against you. But when you have frenemies, they act like friends, making you think they are loyal and trustworthy. They act nice, but they really feel jealousy, anger, and sometimes even malice. Their real intentions might not be known until they've done a lot of damage, which makes them a dangerous person to have in your life. Frenemies are very good at hiding their identities and acting like friends and partners. They usually show up in your life when you're weak or when you're doing well, posing as helpful friends. Their attentiveness and actions that seem kind are part of their plan to get you to trust them. Once they have your trust, they will start to subtly change things to help themselves, usually at your cost. Envy is what drives an enemy to act the way they do. They might dislike your successes, happiness, or growth as a person. They don't want to celebrate your successes. Instead, they want to downplay or ruin them. Often, this envy comes from feeling like you're not good enough or thinking that your successes show them how bad they are. They may cheer for your wins on the outside, but their inner turmoil shows in actions that are meant to hurt you. Frenemies are very good at manipulating you and will use sneaky methods to hurt your real relationships. They often talk about you behind your back and spread lies or half-truths to hurt your image. They want to keep you away from people who really care about you so that you will depend on them more. Being alone not only makes your support system weaker, but it also gives them more power over your life. For instance, an enemy might say bad things about other people in your group to make themselves look like the only real friend you have. They tell you that everyone else is broken or can't be trusted, which makes you stay away from people who really care about your well-being. When you are weak and distant, they show you what they really want, which is usually to hurt you emotionally. Being around an enemy can be hard on your emotions. Most of the time, what they do is meant to hurt your happiness, joy, and peace of mind. They make you feel emotionally unstable by constantly putting your confidence down or planting seeds of doubt. Because of how they treat you, you might start to doubt your choices, your worth, and even your real friends. In addition, foes enjoy seeing how upset you are. They might act worried when things are bad, but they're really just trying to take advantage of your weakness. What they do is meant to throw you off balance so that you can't fully enjoy your wins or move forward with confidence. Finding an enemy takes being alert and thinking about yourself. Watch how people act in patterns. Do they celebrate your wins or downplay them? Do they help your relationships get along or make things worse? Once you know who they are, you need to stay away from them. Putting yourself around real, helpful people can help you find peace and protect your mental health. Frenemies are a threat that is hard to see, but very real. Because they can pretend to be friends, they are especially dangerous because they can hurt you from people you trust. You can protect your joy, happiness, and peace of mind by being aware of their tricks and putting real relationships first. 4. The royal enemies. Royal enemies are people with more power or rank than you who see you as a threat. Not because of what you've done, but because of what they think about your future. Royal enemies are different from enemies who are jealous of what you have done. They are focused on what you might do. They are more worried about how great they think you are and how it might make their own power, influence, or reputation look weak. King Saul's friendship with David is one of the most profound examples of a royal enemy in the Bible. David was just a simple farm boy. He wasn't rich, powerful, or have a title. It was still God's will for him to become king one day. It wasn't that David had done anything bad that made Saul dislike him. It was that David stood for God's favor and a future that would be better than Saul's rule. Fear and nervousness made Saul want to kill David, even though David was loyal to him. Saul was too focused on David's potential to do his job as king. This made him jealous, paranoid, and eventually destructive to himself. This dynamic shows a key trait of royal enemies. They are not scared of your current situation, but of what you promise to do. Even though they have a lot more money, power, and influence than you do, they are scared of the greatness that lies within you. They see your special gifts or calling, and instead of helping you grow or learning from them, they try to control or get rid of you. Enemies of the royal family often act from a place of fear. On the outside, they may look sure of themselves and settled, but deep down, they are afraid of being surpassed or replaced. This fear can show up as sneaky sabotage, public criticism, or even attacks on your character, relationships, and chances. Their goal is to stop you from growing so that you don't reach your full potential. Another important lesson from the story of Saul and David is that powerful enemies can help you find your way. Although Saul wanted to kill David, his chase made David depend on God more, become stronger, and learn how to be a leader. David's struggles while Saul ruled over him were an important part of his training to become king. This shows that even though your royal enemies may try to stop you, their attacks will often make you stronger and more determined, which will eventually help God's plan for your life. Royal enemies show that being powerful often leads to opposition. When you have a special calling or purpose, you may face resistance from places you didn't expect it. It's important to see these problems not as obstacles, but as signs that you are on the right path. Simply the fact that someone in power feels threatened by you shows that you stand for something important and worth fighting for. When facing enemies of the royal family, it's important to keep your honor, respect, and faith. Don't give in to the urge to get back at them or let their negativity consume you. Instead, keep your eye on your goal, believe that God knows when the right time is, and let their opposition make your journey stronger. David overcame Saul's plans to stop him, and you can do the same. You can rise above the plans of royal enemies and follow your fate. 5. Enemies of competition. Competitive enemies are a special kind of enemy that every picked person needs to watch out for. These people don't want to end your life. Instead, they want to destroy your power, favor, and the platform God has given you. Their envy doesn't come from what you have, but from how other people see and praise you. They don't like how people love, recognize, and accept you, so they do things to lessen your effect on other people. An enemy who is competitive will do anything to hurt your reputation. They are sneaky and plan ahead, and to hurt your image, they often spread rumors, lie, or try to trick you. Their goal is to make people who like or back you doubt you. They want to cut you off from others by making them hate you, which will make it hard for you to keep the power God has given you. This kind of opposition is especially sneaky because it often happens in places where relationships and trust should grow, like workplaces, neighborhoods, and even spiritual groups. One trait of competitive enemies is that they can hide what they want to do. They might act like they support or even like you, but they're really working against you. This dishonesty can be mentally draining because you may trust them at first, but then find out what their real goals are. Their anger comes from not being able to accept the special favor God has bestowed upon your life. Getting respect and approval is usually more important to them than making something of their own. They don't feel happy about your success. Instead, they see it as a danger and see your favor as something they need to either get or break down. The Bible talks about many cases of enemies who are competitive. In 1 Samuel 18:7-9, after David beat Goliath and the people praised him, King Saul felt jealous of David's success. Saul has killed his thousands, and David his tens of thousands, the women sang, making Saul angry. Even though Saul was in charge, he saw David's growing power as a threat to his own. After that, Saul tried to kill David and hurt his reputation with other people, which shows how competitive enemies often act. Enemies who are competitive go after the things that make your life better, like your favor, charm, and God-given influence. These are traits that are very hard to copy or steal, but they make people very envious. Their acts, like focusing on your platform instead of building their own, show how insecure they are. They might try to stop you from taking advantage of chances, spread lies, or make your relationships worse. But their plans often show how weak they are and how little faith they have in God's plan for them. Staying true to who you are and what you're here to do is the best way to protect yourself from competitors. Remember that your respect comes from God and can't be taken away by people. Stay honest, don't get into fights, and put your trust in God, who will protect your name in the end. Romans 8:31 says, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" If you stay strong and focused, you can rise above the plans of your rivals and keep walking in the favor and purpose God has planned for your life. 6. Enemies of destiny. Destiny enemies are people or things that want to mess up your God-planned future. Unlike enemies who are interested in your present or past, these ones want to get in the way of you achieving your mission. Their goal is not a random one. It comes from the fact that they see potential in you, potential that you might not even fully understand. People who are after you know that when you fulfill your fate, it could change the whole world. In this way, They plan to stop you before you get where you're going. Dangerous people from your past often attack just as you are starting to become great. They don't wait for your calling to fully come out. Instead, they attack early on, trying to stop your growth completely. This is shown by the story of Moses. Moses wasn't a threat to Pharaoh or his country when he was a baby. Yet he hadn't led the Israelites out of Egypt, split the Red Sea, or done any other wonders. But because Pharaoh knew that Moses' birth was a sign from God, he ordered the killing of all Hebrew male babies to stop the coming of a deliverer. This shows how fate enemies think. They can see past your present situation and are afraid of the potential you hold. In the story of Jesus, King Herod tried to get rid of the Messiah by telling all male children younger than 2 to be killed. Herod's extreme acts show how desperate destiny's enemies are. Herod was afraid and envious because the promise about a coming king made people think of Jesus as a threat to his rule. Destiny enemies are very good at predicting the future. They often act on divine messages or signs of greatness, even if the person they are after hasn't done anything important yet. The bad guys in Destiny aren't always easy to spot. They might be sneaky, hiding what they want to do by acting like they care or want to help. Sometimes they are people with a lot of power or control, whose actions can really make things hard. Sometimes they show up as situations, spiritual forces, or systematic problems that are meant to stop and discourage you. These enemies hit in different ways. Distractions. These are chances or problems that take your attention away from your goal. Fear. They plant seeds of doubt that make you doubt your calling. Delay. They put up barriers that slow you down so you'll give up on your goal altogether. The stories of Moses and Jesus teach us that enemies of our fate can't win if we don't give up and believe in God's plan. Even though they were up against a lot of opposition, both figures' goals were eventually achieved because they were guided by divine will. To beat Destiny's enemies, you have to stay alert, pray, and concentrate. Being able to see the resistance for what it is, a response to your greatness, helps you stay rooted in your faith. No matter how strong your fate enemies' attacks are, they will not be able to stop you if you surround yourself with helpful friends and spiritual resources. Even if your enemies are in your destiny, they can't change what God has planned. When you keep going, their attempts to stop you from reaching your goal only make your ultimate victory more impressive. 7. Threats of the night. The idea of enemies of the night comes from the story of the wheat and tares in Matthew 13:25, where Jesus says, "While men slept, the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way." This verse shows how spiritual enemies plan to attack when people are weak or at rest, in order to stop peace, harvest, and progress. These enemies are a strong warning of how important it is to stay alert to protect one's life and purpose. The night stands for a time of rest, renewal, and being open. It stands for times when a person is physically and mentally less alert. At these times, enemies of the night move quietly, causing trouble, distractions, or blockages that are often not noticed until it's too late. Their goal isn't just to break the peace for a short time. They want to stop people from making progress. In the same way the tares grow next to wheat, these problems are meant to look like they won't hurt anything, so they aren't noticed until they've done a lot of damage. One of the main goals of the enemies of the night is to ruin the harvest. In the story, the enemy sowed tares that fight with the wheat for resources, which hurts both the quality and quantity of the crop. In a spiritual sense, this is like how fears, distractions, or negative thoughts planted during weak times can stop progress, delay breakthroughs, or lessen the results of hard work. These attacks usually go after the things that people have put the most effort into, like relationships, jobs, or spiritual growth. This makes sure that there is the most damage. One more thing these enemies want is to take away people's happiness. If an enemy attacks at night, the person can't sleep because they are so scared or upset. This lack of peace often shows up as worry, confusion, or tiredness, which makes the person less able to deal with problems or take advantage of chances. Enemies of the night keep progress and growth from continuing by getting in the way of rest. Also, enemies of the night are stirred up by success and real progress. They usually show up when a person starts to see results or make big steps toward their goals. Their actions are meant to stop the momentum of success, whether it's through jealousy, sabotage, or spiritual resistance. For example, in the parable, the enemy didn't just plant tares by accident. They did it on purpose to stop the farmer from getting the crop they were expecting. In the same way, these enemies plan to attack at key moments in your life when you are about to make a success. To fight the threats of the night, you need to be spiritually aware and ready. Jesus tells his people in Matthew 26:41, "Watch and pray so that you don't give in to temptation." Being alert means staying close to God through prayer, thinking about His Word, and spotting places where the enemy might be working. Their plans can be stopped, and their crops can be saved if you stay spiritually awake. In the middle of the night, sneaky, troublesome forces attack at weak times to threaten peace, progress, and the harvest. By staying spiritually alert and understanding their plans, people can stop them from stopping others from succeeding, and they can enjoy the full benefits of their hard work and divine purpose. Thanks for coming with me on this quest to find the 7 enemies that every chosen person needs to know about. Don't forget that being aware is your first line of defense, and knowing about these forces will help you stay strong on your way. If this video helped you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos that will help you reach your goals. Leave a comment below and tell us what spoke to you the most. Don't forget to send this to someone today who needs it. Stay on track, and I'll see you in the next video. Be careful.